May 15th, 4:53 in the afternoon. This is Tech Tales 12. Since last report, let's see what have I got. Well, some of my time has been on this computer. This is the replacement computer for Dee Dee's new computer because her first one got damaged, as reported in a prior episode. And I've got two laptops over here. One belongs to the SJ Pest Control Company. They want me to wipe and reload it. Windows 10 for general office use. And this one here is Bob's laptop with PW. Nothing special to talk about with those. What I would like to talk about is a phone conversation with Bob from PW today. I had told you that I was nervous about that he might go to his computer and find that his recently used list doesn't work. So he told me he had been to his computer, but he only did email. So he had not discovered that. When I talked to him on the phone this afternoon, he was at home, late morning. So I told him that I had set up his computer for demonstrating how the OneDrive would work, and that his recently used file list wasn't going to work right. When I first got through to him, he actually apologized for not being responsive to me because he was preparing for a big court case that starts tomorrow. I thought he was going back to the coast tomorrow, so I kind of felt a little pressure to get this dealt with, but I misunderstood his timing plans. So we're fine on that. We had a fairly lengthy conversation on a variety of topics, a little bit about OneDrive, but not a lot. His wife, Holly, also at home at the time, was having troubles with her laptop. After Bob and I got past the part about him not responding to my calls, he said, but I have a couple problems here at the house. And he first started with the problem that I hadn't come over yet to copy Holly's files to the external hard drive. And I told him, well, that's dependent upon, I need to talk to you about OneDrive and demonstrate that to you because I think that's going to make copying them to an external hard drive pointless, just wasting your money. And so he said, okay, but the second problem was that Holly kept getting kicked off of the Wi-Fi network at the house. And he suspected that it had to do with the external Wi-Fi antenna that I had installed some time back. And I told him my suspicions is that, actually I should preface that by saying, he quoted Holly as having told him that she came across a message in regards to fixing the network connection. And when I talked to Holly later, more specifically, what had happened is a message came up on her screen saying that a problem had been detected and had been fixed. It's not that she actually clicked to fix something. And I suspected that what got fixed was that the computer detected that the internal Wi-Fi antenna had been disabled, and this fixing was going to re-enable it. And if that's the case, that internal Wi-Fi antenna was weaker than the external one that I had installed, and that would actually be consistent with the symptom that her computer had before I installed that external Wi-Fi. So he put me on the phone with Holly, and I asked her if her computer was on at the time, and she said that it was. And I told her from my remote access software, it looks like it's not. So she went to the computer to check on it, and indeed it indicated that, well, it actually, in the bottom right corner, the Wi-Fi signal indicator, when she floated her mouse over it, said internet available. I think that's the right wording for it. But anyway, it was indicating that it was connected. So I asked her to try to go to a website, and she tried that and kept waiting and waiting. And I heard her say to Bob that, yeah, it's slow. referring to an overall impression she has about her computer that it's operating slowly. But that website never came up. And we verified that indeed her computer was not connected to the internet, even though the icon in the system tray says that she is connected. Now, I've seen times when you might be connected to the Wi-Fi signal, but have an indicator that says internet not available. That's not what she had. It said internet available. I think what was happening is she was getting just enough of a signal that that icon would get I don't know how it checks to see if internet is available, but probably similar to a ping command. It finds that there is something out there. But it might not be responsive enough for a web browser. Yeah, I don't know technically how that's judged by the icon in the sys tray, but that's irrelevant because she did not have internet access. She wasn't able to browse to a website. And actually, I've seen instances where you can get to some websites and not others in this type of a Wi-Fi problem situation. So I talked her through a couple things, and we got internet access. I was able to connect remotely, and I was able to verify indeed the external antenna was functioning and the internal antenna was still disabled. So that means we don't have an answer as to why she keeps getting kicked off of the internet. However, I did notice that she was connected to the Wi-Fi SSID in her home that has the number 5 on the end of it. And actually the SSID is called Clovis, which is the city that they live in. Clovis 5 she was connected to instead of Clovis. Well, Clovis 5 is the 5.0 megahertz Wi-Fi signal, and Clovis is the 2.4 megahertz Wi-Fi signal. Well, 2.4 is a slower connection than 5.0. However, 2.4 has a greater range. It's a stronger signal. So you can be farther away from the internet router access or the Wi-Fi router and be able to operate. Well, she is at the opposite end of the house, as far as away in the house as she could possibly be from the Wi-Fi router, and the angle that the signal travels through each of her walls, and the amount of other clutter that is between that Wi-Fi router, which is on the floor behind a large television set, to her laptop computer, which is on the far side of her desk in her office several rooms away. Well, that's enough to degrade this signal. So we switched her to the 2.4 SSID, which SSID is the name of the Wi-Fi network. I don't remember offhand what the SSID stands for, but you can Google it if you want to know. We switched to that one, and within a few minutes, she got kicked off of the internet, and it switched back to the 2.4, the 5.0 network, Clovis 5. So I got reconnected to figure out what's going on. I had a notion what was going on. The external Wi-Fi antenna that I had installed for her was a Netgear, and she had mentioned the name of the Netgear software that's installed on her computer. Well, when we switched her from the Clovis 5 network to the Clovis network, which is 2.4, we did that with the icon in the sys tray down in the bottom right corner that just has those signal bars. And that's the wrong place to do it, because the Netgear software that controls that antenna had been set, or somewhere along the line adopted a default of the Clovis 5 network. During this conversation, she had also mentioned that they had Comcast into the house, and I think, based upon what she was saying, they may have replaced a router, and I don't know how long ago that was. So there could have been changes made at the time that got her onto the Clovis 5 network instead of the preferred Clovis wireless network. So I changed the setting in that Netgear software and then asked her, if you find your connection stable for the rest of today and into tomorrow, is that enough time to say that we've probably fixed it? Or has your problem been a couple times a week, so it might take longer to judge? And she said, oh no, I couldn't get 10 minutes without getting kicked off. And I asked, was this a recent development? She said, yes, it was a recent development. Actually, I think Bob had said that earlier in the conversation. Prior to connecting remotely, I had decided in my mind prematurely and incorrectly that I was going to have to go out to the house. I had already told Bob that I was going to have to go out to the house. When he put me on the phone with Holly, it was for the specific purpose of coordinating a time for me to go out to the house. Holly and I started discussing what she had planned for the rest of the day and started identifying when I would come out. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, let me just try connecting remotely. I opened my remote software, found that her computer indicated that it was not online, and I asked, is your computer on now? So basically, just one foot after the other, we wound up fixing it over the phone. And all is good. Now, if I had gone out there, I probably would have wound up charging them less money than I wound up doing by doing it remotely, because a lot of our conversation doing it remotely, I was operating in the blind, and I probably would have recognized quicker what to do, because each time that I got disconnected, it took a while to get connected again. And each time I was talking her through clicking on things where I couldn't see her screen, that took longer than it would have taken otherwise. So all told, that was an hour and 21 minutes on the phone between both Bob and Holly in discussing issues and fixing her situation. So we got the job done. We didn't have to deal with doing it later. We just started the phone call and got all of what we needed to do done. Except, of course, I didn't get to demonstrate OneDrive to Bob. We'll need to do that in the office, but the time pressure is off now because I know that he's preparing for a court case tomorrow, and there was no need to take more time with him now. Lessons out of that: consider alternative ways to solve a problem. Consider remote connection methods to solve a problem. Holly's pretty good about me being able to give her instructions of what to click on, and she's clicking on the right thing. And both she and Bob are really good about giving me specific feedback, or not instructions, but explanations of what they're seeing and what they're doing. One of the things that I did with Bob is I needed to discuss the configuration of the Microsoft Office software that he had bought for each of those 4 laptop computers, and what Microsoft accounts he might have. So I got that information from him and his passwords, and he's very meticulous about pronouncing the spelling of the usernames and passwords, and we did find a couple of pieces of information that I didn't know about along those lines. So we have next steps planned for that. There was another piece. Well, okay, along the lines of things that I can pass along to other technicians who are less time on the job than I, and wanting to pass along things that I've learned is communication with the client. Reach out to them first, because I had sent a text message to Bob. Following day, I sent an email message. I had checked at his office a couple times to see if I could catch him in. Still didn't get a response from him. So this morning I called to his cell phone and then found out about his delay in responding to me because he's busy with preparing for a court case. But I'm reaching out to him. I don't just reach out to him once and then wait for him to get back, and if he doesn't get back to me for several days, thinking that it's on him. No, I'm going to follow up. I'm not going to follow up multiple times in one day, because that can just be a nuisance. Another lesson worth pointing out is being sensitive to the time needs and the interests of the client. In Bob's case, he's got his attention focused on the court case. I want to just deal with what is urgent with him. And I actually told him, look, I don't need to take any more of your time now. We can deal with that after you're past working on the case. In Holly's situation, she's getting kicked off every 10 minutes. We need to get something resolved as quickly as we can. So being sensitive to the circumstances of the client, and just ask, is this something you want to deal with now, or do you prefer to deal with this issue with me later? All right, so I think that's a decent update for today. You know what? I'll put in another little piece. Something that's been kind of consuming me over the last few days. I've been trying to find a way to make these updates, Tech Tales, a little quicker and easier, because I've been having to do this recording on a separate camera, like this one. I've got 4 of these cameras. I had them for this many cameras for specific purposes. I used to make videos of aviation meetings. So anyway, every time I was doing that, this would be on a tripod, and after finishing the recording, I would have to take it off the tripod, take this off, open up this hatch, get the SD card out, put it into my Mac, copy that into a folder, put that into Camtasia, and I just wanted a way to make it quicker. Isn't there some way I just have a camera attached to the Mac? Well, I do also have a couple of these Logitech webcams, and these are the Logitech C920, and every time I go look for what camera works well with Camtasia or Macs, and this camera always comes up, but I don't like the way this one comes out. The exposure, the colors are not, I don't like them. So I tried playing with lights, I tried playing with changing settings, I tried playing with all kinds of things. I did some shopping around looking at, well, maybe I need to get a DSLR camera that'll connect to the computer, and so it can just be recorded straight onto the computer instead of having to transfer something over. And then I got to realize, well, now wait a minute, this camera has a couple of connections and there's an HDMI. So I checked to see, can I do an HDMI cable into USB? And no, that's not a thing. Well, I was connecting this port to a battery that would keep continual power to the camera. And that was actually another problem, because what would happen is if I didn't push the button, this battery is connected to the camera that you're looking through right now. But I have to push this button on the side so that it'll be actually powering the camera. If I forget to do that, what happens is the camera starts recording off of battery juice, and then if it quits during the recording, I'm just out of luck. So anyway, there's all that going on. So then what I wound up realizing after doing a bunch of other research, looking at other people's YouTube videos about what they were doing, I realized that USB cable that I had connected to the battery, I can connect it directly to my Mac. And then I make a selection on the camera to tell it to operate as a webcam. And that worked. I could record directly into Camtasia. However, the way it appears, the way Camtasia does that is Camtasia is expecting you to have the main screen to be the image of the computer screen, and what the camera's recording is just going to be a little inset down in usually the bottom right corner. So it's low resolution and it's a square orientation. And anything I tried to do in Camtasia with that image, it was a low resolution and the colors just weren't very good and the proportions weren't right. Well, now I suspect that that's exactly what was happening with these Logitech webcams. They're probably fine in all those regards, but when using them in Camtasia, it's going to be low resolution, it's going to be square, and the lighting the colors don't come out very good. So that was an example of one of those situations where I can have a great deal of patience working on my clients' issues, but when I'm having trouble myself, it's more challenging and frustrating because, well, one, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing and be able to figure these things out, and two, nobody's paying me for this. So this phase one of doing tech tales and getting these done, I mentioned before that I haven't done any marketing yet. I'm not concerned about that. My recent checks shows that I'm still at a stable growth rate of 0 views per month. And that's fine with me because this is all about getting my workflow down before I start feeling the pressure of questions and comments coming in from viewers. I'd rather have a whole stockpile of videos out there and then start attracting attention and people start watching those. So I'm still focused on getting the system down. And I think that's something I'll talk about in future Tech Tales, about the systems that I've developed for how I operate. My business is a whole lot more efficient and easier to deal with, easier to manage than it was in prior years because every year I make improvements in my systems. And I think that's something that a lot of self-employed people don't put enough effort into, and they wind up being overworked. I'm not overworked. I have free time. Okay, so I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.